Sounds okay now.
Yeah, I don't hear blurred now. I called Justin. He's bringing the JK just in case.
.9 WTGZ, Union Springs, Montgomery, and Auburn, and AM 620 WTRP, LaGrange. The opening segment of Sports Call is brought to you by JD's Tire and Auto. When looking for service, selection, quality, and value, no one does it better than JD's Tire and Auto in Alexander City. Offering any brand of tire you need with professional installation and fast turnaround. JD's Tire and Auto, the total package for all your vehicle needs.
You better buckle your seatbelt because it's going to be a show to watch.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson, touchdown!
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive, belts and right!
Sports Call.
Oh, what a dunk!
Call in now at 887-3401-LOCAL.
Right through, he got it!
Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll free.
Struck him out!
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains, Sports Call.
Hello again, everyone, and good Thursday afternoon. Welcome into the latest edition of Sports Call. I am Andy Graham alongside Randy Lee, and we'll be with you for the next 2 hours, taking your phone calls and discussing everything going on in the world of sports. We'd love for you to be a part of the program today. So give us a call, 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, or locally at 334-887-3401 on the Auburn Opelika Tourism Hotline. We appreciate so much all of you out there joining us today, whether that be on 93.9 The Tiger or sportscallauburn.com via the internet. We'd love to interact with you any way we can. Check us out on our Facebook page. Send us a tweet at SportsCallAU, but we'd love to talk with you personally. Give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. We'll throw a question of the day out there. We'll take your predictions. Mississippi State at Auburn this weekend. Peyton Barber rushing yards will be the tiebreaker. And we'll throw a trivia question out there. A lot of great guests on the show today. Just a lot of information to talk about, a lot going on, especially with the Auburn Tigers. Sports Call today brought to you by Home Place Mortgage. Home Place Mortgage of Auburn and Lake Martin, the region's best mortgage professionals and rates for all new home or refinancing mortgage services. Come to the right place. Home Place Mortgage of Auburn and Lake Martin. You can check them out at homeplacemtg.com. Of course, redshirt freshman Sean White prepares to make his college debut this Saturday as Auburn will take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs at Jordan-Hare Stadium, 6:30 on ESPN2. Will the defense help him out any? Auburn makes a change at quarterback, but certainly there are a lot more things that the Tigers need to shore up than just the QB position. Will Muschamp talked about yesterday maybe changes coming to the Auburn lineup, changes coming to the defense. He said after an embarrassing performance like they had in Baton Rouge, what else can you do but make changes? So does that mean the scheme? Does that mean personnel? He reiterated again that Auburn is too good. They have too good of players to be as bad as they looked against LSU. We'll go ahead and break down Auburn versus Mississippi State as we turn our attention toward the Bulldogs for that game Saturday. Can the defense recover from a horrendous performance like last week? Jason Caldwell will join us at 4:30. Dr. Paul Goldhagen will stop by again and join us at 5 o'clock, talk about some of the injuries going on for Auburn and around the SEC. And then we'll have a special guest, Ken Mastro. He is from the Quarterback Academy. He has his own Quarterback Academy. Sean White was actually a pupil of his, or is a pupil of his. So he's a former quarterback for Chicago Bears and has been doing this quarterback academy for a while. He's got a great reputation. So we'll have him on at 5:30 and talk about Sean White and just get some evaluation from him about Sean and how he has progressed from high school on now, about to make his college debut. But, I thought it would be a good idea Gus, Will Muschamp talking about changes to the defense. I thought a good question today, what changes would you make to the Auburn defense? Because definitely changes need to be made.
Well, when you look down this stat line, let me run down some of this. In the last 9 FBS opponents, we have allowed over 400 yards in those games. Under new defense coordinator Will Muschamp, Auburn's defense is allowing 421.5 yards per game, 199.5 yards on the ground, which is not 96th nationally, and 222 yards through the air, which is 80th nationally. I don't know where you can find any positive numbers in that, Andy.
Well, now granted, look, 411 yards rushing, that'll throw that'll skew the statistics a little bit. But Randy, Auburn has given up 270 yards rushing a game. 270 yards rushing a game. Now, I think this may be the saddest stat I've ever read in my entire life. And I mean that. This from AU Tigers from Mark Murphy. Last season, Will Muschamp's Florida team allowed a total of 1,394 rushing yards in 12 games and 10 rushing touchdowns. Through 3 games, Auburn has given up 810 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns in 3 games.
That's all you need to know. I mean, you hear Will Muschamp, though, and by the way, his statement yesterday, I appreciated it. I mean, it sounded horrific. I mean, it sounded like he's truly disappointed, like I'm sure, but at least he said it. It wasn't complete coach talk there where you didn't get anything. I mean, but when you read through the statements, he says, we have good enough players to have a good defense, and we will before the year's over. That's been your point. Now, I can't tell you how many people, by the way, have said, it's the players, Randy, to me, since you said that on Tuesday. He's saying that the players are there. You go around, you read more in depth, and he said the communication's off. Communication between the secondary and linebackers have been a problem. I point to saying, look, I think Will Muschamp's going to get this thing turned around, but he's been there 6 months, been there a half year. I mean, it's Auburn fans. We shan't throw the blame to somebody else when the communication's off when somebody's been around a half a year. Am I off by saying that,
No,
Andy?
I don't think so. Look, and James, one of our great callers, actually called in Sports Blitz Tuesday night, and he referenced, what did Andy mean by it's the players? He said it's not Will Muschamp, it's not Rodney Garner, it's the players. Well, look, here's what I mean by that. It's not all about talent, okay? I think Auburn does have talent. They have talent sprinkled in on this defense. Montravius Adams, I think he's very talented. I think Byron Cowart has a tremendous amount of talent. He's going to be a really good player. I think Jeffrey Holland's going to be a really good player, but they're still trying to learn how to play SEC football. Okay, I think there's some talent on this team, but it's more than that. It's talent, it's discipline, it's eye control, it's being where you're supposed. It's being able to carry out what is called from the sideline. And you hear Will Muschamp, and he keeps saying we got to get guys in there that can actually run the plays that we're calling. Communication's bad, discipline's bad. It's not all about talent. That's what I mean when I say it's the players. You cannot argue. You cannot intelligently argue that Will Muschamp doesn't know what he's doing. You can't. What is it, a stat? 8 out of 10 years, he's had not a good defense, a top 10 defense. The man is brilliant. We've been saying it. We've had 4 coordinators in 5 years, or since 2009, whatever it is. It was the same thing. Outside of Nick Fairley, you take him off that 2010 team, we would have been just as bad. We wouldn't have given up. And are there better defensive line coaches out there than Rodney Garner? Yes. I'm sure that there are. But he's not – he is coaching that defensive line the way Will Muschamp wants it to be coached. And if at the end of the year, Will says, I don't trust him, he's not doing it right, they'll make a change.
Is there any
It's
part
the players.
Is there any part of this stat line, though, that makes you feel like Auburn can get this thing turned around Saturday? Dak Prescott accounted for 374 total yards. I think he's accounted for 200 passing yards and 100 rushing yards in both the past 2 years against this Auburn defense, as Auburn lost 38-23, gave up 469 total yards. What part of you – look, I like that we're going to change players out. I like that we're going to get some new blood in there. I love hearing all of these things because at least it gives you hope. It's kind of like on the quarterback position. At least I go in saying I'm going to see something that I didn't see last weekend. But these are guys that haven't played. They're clearly guys that when you go through an entire offseason, you make a decision that they're not equal to the talent that you put out there to start the beginning of the year, or – why did you start what you started? Again, I give a pass on the offense. I still do. I'm going to stay with that. I don't think it's Coach Malzahn's issue that Jeremy lost it. I mean, maybe you can tell me. I mean, why do any athletes get the yips? We don't know why. I mean, any of us that have had it, I've had it. I get it. I don't know why I got it. I wish I never got it. It's hard to get rid of it. Once you get them, you just got them. I give a pass on offense, and I, again, applaud Coach Malzahn from saying you lost confidence, you got the yips. Let's move on. Let's at least not try to have this whole season go down. But defensively, buddy, it's been like this for a long time.
It has. And I'm telling you, I mean, and I think Will said something very important in the last couple of days. He said, we're trying to change the culture. And it's something that we've all known. You and I have known this since 2009. We just didn't really want to admit it. There is a culture at Auburn now for bad defense. That's a fact. Okay, we've played bad defense since 2009. In 2008, we were not a bad defense, but in 2009, we were lulled into believing, and we all fought it a little bit, some of us more than others, to say, you know, it's nice to score 40 points a game. It's nice to score 35 points a game, and it is. And I'd like to do that every game. But we sacrificed good defense when we started doing that. And right now, we just got to be – we're going to be better. Will Muschamp will figure it out, if it's not replacing all the players. We'll get better. Next year, I think we'll be good. And the year after that, I think we'll be very good. But right now, I mean, it's a culture thing. We're bad. It's Auburn. It's the players.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Our question of the day, what changes would you make to the AU defense to make that change? Me personally, I think you're going to see big differences in the linebacking play. I think that's where you start. I've been complaining about the secondary play for years, but I hate that they're seniors, and I hate that they have had glimpses of playing well. But after a while, Andy, I think you've got to go ahead and make a change, try to get something different out there than we've been seeing for the last 4 years.
One thing that I read that I like to hear, and I thought about this Saturday after the LSU game. I said I'd put Casanova McKenzie at the buck. I'd change him. I mean, he just, you know, our linebackers just can't. They can't recognize the play fast enough. They're a step slow getting there or whatever. By the time they get to the hole, they're looking at the back of the jersey of whoever's running past them. So I think you're going to see some guys, like you say, get some. I might move Jeffrey Holland, the linebacker, and give him a chance just to see if he's athletic enough and can really, you know, they can simplify it enough to do it. But I'd be interested in what are your thoughts out there? What changes would you make?
Let's go to the phone lines. Ted, you're on Sports Call. Ted, you there with us?
I'm here. You hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Ted. Thanks for calling.
I just heard what you all said today about the culture of defense. That was right, though. I was reading an article what Coach Muschamp said that the culture had to be changed. And then he also stated he's going to make some wholesale changes. So I don't know what he means by that. And, you know, watching the LSU game, like on the second half, when Rudy Ford, who's supposed to be a good player, he kind of gave up chasing Fournette. And that's probably an example of a bad culture. They got no fight in them. Even if they're way behind, there's no fight. Look like they kind of give up, you know. And I think that's what Bill Muschamp was talking about. So I don't know what kind of changes you're going to do, but he also mentioned about Byron Cole, he's going to expand his role or something like that. Again, I don't know what they mean by that, expand his role. And then yesterday, I think on Sportscall, one of the questions they were asking was, do you agree with changing quarterback? and I look at the online survey that a lot of Auburn fans, 96% agree with changing the quarterback. So even a lot of sports analysts, Al.com, Pritchard, ESPN, they all agreed with Coach Mosan did. Go and change it now. Don't wait, because it might end up just like a disastrous season again. So, well, we'll see Saturday. I got my fingers crossed. Thanks for calling. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, we appreciate it, Ted. Great phone call, and I agree with him. I mean, you're only 3 games in. I mean, if you're going to make a change, if you see the writing on the wall, I'm with Ted. Go ahead and do it, Andy.
Absolutely. My fingers are crossed as well. So we're going to go up against our first break here, but we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call, 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll free locally at 334-887-3401. What changes would you make to the Auburn defense if you were in charge? We're taking your predictions throughout a trivia question when we come back. More Sports Call presented by Home Place Mortgage right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Thursday afternoon. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, locally at 334-887-3401 on the Auburn Opelika Tourism Hotline. What changes would you make to the Auburn defense? Will Muschamp talks about changes this week. What will we see? Personnel, scheme? A lot needs to change for this Auburn defense after giving up 411 yards rushing against LSU.
Let's try to go back to the phone lines. Tom, you're on Sports Call.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
Good to hear from you, Tom.
There's a few things that I would change. Number one, I had a son that plays for Benjamin Russell when your brother played. Those two guys would run from a block wall for their coach. It doesn't seem like some of these guys on our defense would do that. And I think that needs to be changed. I also think that as bad as it sounds, I would put one against one. We're not very tough on each side of the line right now. Linebacker play, 1 minute they look all world, the next minute they're waiting for the running back to come to them instead of running up in the hole and sticking the guy like they're supposed to. And then number three, the people that did a lot of the old-lane tackling last week, our safety, those guys would sit down. I would rather lose with freshmen and redshirt freshmen and redshirt sophomores than I would with the senior that doesn't want to give me 100%. And that's all I got to say. I'll take your response off here. Good show, guys.
Hey, Warrior, good to you, Tom. We appreciate the phone call there. And I think that's what Coach Muschamp's saying.
Effort,
and I'm willing to change this thing out. I'm willing to make wholesale substitutions if I've got to, and maybe we see that. And he's saying the talent's over there. Now, it may be young talent, but I'd rather you lose with young talent than seniors that aren't getting it done, Andy.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to it's not all about talent. I mean, it's about discipline. It's about effort. It's about all these different things combined. And you saw – now, look, I mean, I can sit here. It's easy for me to say, well, they didn't want to tackle Leonard Fournette. I wouldn't want to tackle him either. I mean, he's a freight train, especially when he's, past the linebackers. So, look, Blake Countess, he's a guy, very experienced coming over from Michigan, has done a great job. He's always in the right place at the right time, but you know what? He's gotten run over at least 2 or 3 times. He's just not physical enough, and he's a corner. He shouldn't be having to take on Leonard Fournette at full speed. I mean, you got to slow him down a little bit at the line of scrimmage, or, somebody's got to fill that gap to at least slow him down a little bit. So, it's easy for me to say they didn't have a lot of effort to want to tackle him, but that's really what it looks like. That's what it looked like happened.
And this is just not Leonard Fournette. Let's clear this up.
He's phenomenal, but
I think his top game going into Saturday was 155 yards or so. So
he's not 12 yards a carry good.
No, Auburn made him look like Auburn makes a lot of running backs look over the last 7 or 8 years. Unbelievable. So I'm not saying he may win the Heisman. I think he does have that type of talent. I mean, every prognosticator you hear out there, every media guy out there says he's a top 5 pick if he came out this year as a sophomore. So I get all that. But let's start. How about this weekend? Are we going to use that excuse, man? We just went up against the best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference, and he put up another 350 or 400 like he's done the last couple of years. We just keep making more and more excuses. And I think that's the feel-good part of me with Will Muschamp. He's saying we got to get this culture changed. We got to get the whole mentality around it changed. Let's go back to the phone lines. Rain Man, you're on Sports Call.
Hello.
Yeah, we got you, Rain Man. Good to hear from you.
There you are. Hey, I said a lot of things about a lot of things, so I'm going to try to be as brief as I can on this. 2 things real quickly. I heard on ESPN, I can't remember what show I was watching, they were talking about some statistics as it relates to our running game, and they were saying that in our 2 national championship runs, and in particular in 13, we averaged about 4 yards per carry before the first defensive player contacted our running back. Do you know what we're averaging this year?
-1.
-1. That is pretty bad, and that is not an indictment of a quarterback or a running back. That's an indictment of your offensive line. Next thing I want to say, or it's kind of a question, but it's meant to be rhetorical, but you can answer it if you would like. If any other coach of any other team came out and said, we're changing our quarterback, we're shuffling our offensive line, and we're making wholesale changes to our defense, would you assume that that team's about to go on a winning streak or a losing streak?
Well, it doesn't bode well. Let's say that.
If Nick Saban came out tomorrow and said that, we would say, oh, Alabama's in trouble. If any other coach of any other team but the coach that coaches the team that I root for said that, it would give me a moment of pause about that team and their future. And we can't do this where we say, well, he's got all these bad players that aren't any good that are left over from the previous coach. He's got a handful of players left over from the previous staff, but most of these players on this team, at least the ones that we've been able to keep here over the last 2 years, are his players and his guys. The systemic, deep-rooted problem that we have for a dearth of talent and available players isn't because this is his first year and there's a whole bunch of bad players left over. These are his guys. I don't know how you fix that short term, and I really don't know how you fix it long term if we're already seeing the bad decisions made in recruiting and player development over the last 2 years that have continued from the previous coaching staff, of which our current coach was a part of. So I don't know what we're going to do to fix the defense right now. Playing 8 true freshmen isn't a fix to your problem. It's just getting them ready for next year and the year after, which may be what we need to do. But there's a problem that goes far beyond just what we're seeing right now on the field. You guys have a good day.
Good to hear from you, Ray, man.
Yeah, look, it's not a scheme problem if you put 8, 9 men in the box and you can't stop the run. That's a player problem. That's an effort problem. You can do some things different to try to take something away from an offense. Again, putting that many people in the box, you're supposed to be able to at least stop the run, make a team throw to beat you or make a team run to beat you. However, that's kind of the back and forth that goes along. When you just are totally inept at stopping the run, no matter how many people you put there, that's players, that's effort. Will Muschamp even went so far to say it's a lot about want to. And so I think Auburn's got to look themselves in the mirror, and I hope they have this entire week. Let's go ahead and throw a trivia question out there. Leonard Fournette, speaking of the Devils, rushed for 12 yards a carry on Saturday. Who holds the Auburn record for highest yards per carry average in a single game? That's a minimum of 15 carries. Who holds the Auburn record for the highest yards per carry average in a single game? That's a minimum of 15 carries. We're going to go ahead and take a break here, but hopefully when we come back, we'll be joined by Jason Caldwell from inside the Auburn Tigers. Get his thoughts on Sean White's debut this Saturday and what he would do to change up the defense. More Sportscall presented by Lee Marketing Group is on the way.
Check, 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 check. Check 1 2. 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 Hello, check, 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 check. Check 1 2. 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 Shoot.
Visiting Academy / War Eagle. A new winner will be chosen for each home game.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Win. No purchase necessary. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. Official sporting goods retailer of the Auburn Tigers.
The right stuff, the low price, every day. Academy.
Down south in New Orleans.
It's tired of eating the same bland food over and over again. You want something with a little kick, man. Get yourself over to the Shrimp Basket and get you some of their red beans and rice. It's legit, authentic, New Orleans.
Auburn T-shirt headquarters. Buy 3 T-shirts, get 1 free.
Touchdown! Auburn wins!
Get everything Auburn at the Big Blue Bookstore in the Winn-Dixie Shopping Center on South College Street in Auburn.
Gotta get to Gil's Auto Sales. We can finance, you got to get to Gil's. Selection and price. Got to get to Gil's. Gotta get to Gil's.
Did you know that Gil's Auto Sales now features the Prestige Selection at their North Lake and Opelika locations? Gil's Auto Sales now has over 100 Prestige vehicles in stock. Newer models, low mileage with bank financing available. Come see the Prestige Selection at Gil's Auto Sales North Lake location and their new Opelika location. Gotta get to Gil's.
Auburn Links at exit 51 features Bermuda grass greens and rolling fairways along Parkinson's Mill Creek. By taking advantage of the natural beauty already in place, Auburn Links has a scenic yet fair layout for every golfer. Golf Digest presented Auburn Links with the 4-star award, and Links Magazine once ranked the course 3rd best among public courses in the Southeast region. It's one of the best golfing values in the South. Visit their website for more information at auburnlinks.com. For tee times, call 887-5151.
You served your country well. Now civilian life just feels different, and you can't seem to find where to put your next step. Well, you're not alone. Still Serving Veterans is helping.
Again, everyone, welcome back to Sports Call on this Thursday afternoon. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock. Taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-Tiger-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on the AO Tourism Hotline. Our question today, what changes would you make to the Auburn defense? Will Muschamp talking about making changes this week. What changes would you like to see made? We're taking your predictions, of course. Mississippi State at Auburn, Peyton Barber rushing yards beating the tiebreaker, and there's a trivia question out there. Leonard Fournette averaged 12 yards a carry on Saturday. Who holds the Auburn record for highest yards per carry average in a single game. That is minimum 15 carries. A lot of we asked the trivia question on Tuesday. Nobody got it. So when's the last time Auburn and Alabama both lost their conference opener? That was 1959. You have to go all the way back to 1959. So maybe somebody will get this trivia question.
It's kind of funny when you look and you're an Atlanta Falcons fan. I think I noticed this week that this is the first time, maybe only 2 times in team history, they've started 3-0. Did you hear that? And that was an obscene stat for me to really believe. Or maybe they're 2-0, aren't they?
Right.
Only 2-0. It may have been only the second time that they're 2-0. Wow. Could that be right?
I'm sure it can, yeah.
You've been a Falcons fan before. You know how this
many
works.
Years.
Let's go back to the phone lines. James, you're on Sportscall. Good to hear from you, James. Good, good.
Last thing, when is that time? And I know you were talking about we may not have the talent. Well, I think some guys are out of position. I think number 6 is out of position. He's one of these at the end because of his feet. He can't do anything.
miss a break here, but certainly we'll try to answer those questions as best we can. You know, as far as is it Sean White's game to win or lose? I think it is. You know, I think that's not a decision Gus Malzahn makes lightly to sit down Jeremy Johnson. I think that he is the kind of guy, and he said it, you know, up for the first 3 games. Jeremy Johnson is our guy. Jeremy Johnson is our guy. He's our guy. I think he does not want to get into a situation where you have a merry-go-round at the quarterback position. I think that's the last thing they want. So I think it all depends on how the game goes. But hopefully, I think you want to let Sean White get in there, and you want to see an entire game. You want to see what he can do with this offense. But as far as, you know, Will Muschamp, I didn't say we don't have talent. I think we do have talent. I just, like you say, I'm not sure Lambert is 100% healthy. I'm not sure, you know, I mean, we're playing with a lot of freshmen out there that are learning how to play with on-the-job training. So a lot needs to be decided between certainly now in the next couple of games. We'll see how many people want to play on this team, because I think effort is the first and foremost where Will Muschamp is looking for when he puts the guys out there.
888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. They're up against the top of the hour. We come back up to have Dr. Paul Goldhagen on with us.
Absolutely. Don't go anywhere. More Sports Call presented by Home Place Mortgage right after this.
We got coming back this week. Check. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
National Mail and Ole Miss in 2 days. We're all in for it. Well, you like both of them. Welcome back, everyone, to Sportscall on this Thursday afternoon. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9-TOTAL-FREE or locally at 334-887-3401 on the Auburn Opelika Tourism Line. Sportscall today brought to you by Remarketing Group, from logo design and branding to ad placement. L&G can handle it all. For ease of time, cutting edge, results-driven marketing campaigns, think Remarketing Group, your comprehensive marketing solution. Be sure to check them out at remarketing.net. Question of the day, what changes would you make to the Auburn defense? Of course, Will Muschamp talking about changes are going to be made this week. Schematically, personnel, whatever it may be. We're taking your predictions, and we're taking there's a trivia question out there, but we'll get to all that a little bit later. Right now, as he does every other Thursday, Dr. Paul Hagen joining us. Sports Call this afternoon. He, of course, a bone and joint specialist. Offices here in Alexander City, Chicago. David and Wetumpka. Dr. Lowe, good to have you again this week. We'll get to the injury report in a minute, which, of course, there is a lot to talk about injuries, but especially with the Auburn Tigers. But Jeremy Johnson, we were talking about before the show. You look at him in high school, in college last year, he has all the physical tools you can imagine. But you were talking about something, and you had an opinion maybe of something that's effective. Well, again, this is just an unofficial opinion. I don't have any inside information, but it just looked to me like the time is early. And there's definitely a real entity out there called performance anxiety. And if anybody's who studies real hard and knows chokes on a test or can't do well on a standardized test, or just freezes like when you go in front of a group of people to speak. Those are all facets of performance anxiety. And just looking at it, it just looks like he's freezing up, and there's something going on in his head where it's not clicking, because you know he's got the physical gifts and tools to perform at a high level. He's just not doing it.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that assessment. You go back and look at how he performed, and it's funny, and of course we get into psychology, and that's a pretty deep subject. But you know, I mean, he performed well. He knew that he was the backup, and he knew that Nick Marshall was over there.
No pressure.
There was no pressure, and I think that's the key word. And then, you know, when it becomes your team, and you are responsible, and you are the man,
and all eyes are on you, and everybody's looking at you and counting on you, that's a whole different ballgame.
It really does. And, you know, John Smoltz, go back to the Braves, he had a psychologist, you know, there in the stands. And it's a real thing, like you say.
A lot of athletes have sports psychologists that, you know, and a lot of it is about relaxation technique and confidence builders and projecting yourself and thinking ahead and thinking in positive terms and performance, and that you're going to accomplish your goals. And a lot of people can kind of, you know, poo-poo it or put that off, but there is definitely something to be said about that.
Definitely. Well, obviously something is going on with Jeremy Johnson. That's no doubt about that whatsoever. Moving along, unfortunately, Carl Lawson, you know, we were talking about this 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about a hip flexor. And we talked about a little bit about that hip flexor, hip pointer, you know, what that is and everything. You look at what happened during the game, and it just looks so benign. I mean, it just really, you say, well, how could that, you know, cause him to miss now? It looks like going to be half a season. But when we're talking about the hip, kind of refresh us again about, you know, what we're talking about, you know, when we're talking about hip flexor, and why are, by him being out for this long and it being this serious, what would be your diagnosis?
Well, a hip flexor is basically the muscles in front of your hip joint, or the quadricep muscles. They actually start above the hip joint. The hip joint is basically where your groin is. But above there in your pelvis, you have a piece of the pelvis called your anterior spine. That's where your hip flexors start. They start above your hip joint so it can lift your leg up in front of you. And, you know, obviously it's a very important muscle for running and cutting, but he might have had an avulsion to where that tendon of that muscle connecting to the bone pulled off a little piece of bone. And, you know, like we talked about last week with hamstrings, it's just such a big, important muscle. It's very difficult to rehab them. Things take time, and the body needs rest, and it's very hard. Some muscles, some things you can play on while you're resting, and it will kind of be okay because it can still heal. But some of them are so important for performance that you're just not going to be able to perform at the level you need to perform, so you might as well sit and let the thing get completely better. And that might be what's going on. He might just have a hip flexor. It's a bad strain. It may be a tear, but there's really no sense in putting him in. It's just going to make it worse.
Right. I heard, I mean, and from what I understand and read today, they were talking about, of course, he has been on crutches. But, I mean, he's getting around pretty good. He's put a lot of pressure on it. But they were trying to really stretch him out. You know, what would the stretching, how would that help his situation?
Well, when a muscle or a tendon heals, it heals with scar tissue. And scar tissue is not as elastic or resilient as normal tendon or muscle. So you're going to end up getting less range of motion as the muscle or tendon heals. So obviously part of the rehab is to stretch the muscle or tendon. And the tendon basically is what connects our muscles to the bone. Okay? So you have to stretch the muscle to allow it to get your range of motion back. And then once you have your full range of motion, you want to strengthen that muscle back to its normal strength to allow it to be able to perform its function at its maximum.
Unfortunately, again, Josh Holsey, a guy that was coming off an injury, was not finally got 100% healthy against Jacksonville State, and then tears his ACL again. This is the second time. It's the same knee. You know, as an orthopedic surgeon, when you look at an athlete, I mean, you know, like we've talked about so many times, every athlete's different. But you know, how likely is it that an athlete comes back from two ACLs in the same knee?
are we at the point now in medicine where it's not that uncommon?
Well, for an ACL injury, an isolated ACL, it's not that unheard of for somebody to come back from the second one. They have to use a different graft, different ligament. Usually in athletes, they're using part of either your hamstring tendon or part of your patella tendon. Basically, they take it from you. When you have to redo it, they usually take it from a cadaver because they don't need it anymore. And it is a little bit of a longer rehab and a little longer before you come back, but it's not really unheard of to come back from it. And there is actually a higher incidence of re-tearing after you've torn it the first time.
Now, unfortunately for Josh, that's not.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. Alabama wide receiver Robert Foster tore his rotator cuff. We talked about that. And coincidentally, Drew Brees bruised. It was diagnosed as a bruised rotator cuff for him. But you know, we've talked about rotator cuffs before, but I'm interested, you know, when somebody has a hip replacement, a knee replacement, you know, they're up, you know, immediately after surgery, they're trying to do rehab. With the rotator cuff, I mean, it's total immobilization, you know, of that. What's the difference? When we're talking about those kind of injuries, what's the difference with the rehab, and why, you know, is one, you know, totally, you know, don't move, and one, you want to be moving as quickly as possible?
Great question. When we replace a joint, we're actually, in the knee, it's basically a retread, like the tires on your car. You put new tread on it. We take the cartilage or whatever's left on the end of the bone, and we put a piece of metal and plastic on either end and cement it into place. So technically, the only thing that has to heal is the incision that we make to get in there. All right, and we cut through a muscle and tendon. That has to heal, but again, you want to try and move it while it's healing. All right, so there's not a lot to heal, and we're not putting tendons back to bone. When you replace the hip joint, you're basically cutting out the old parts and putting new parts in. So we want to get it moving right away to prevent stiffness. Something like a rotator cuff, when you fix the rotator cuff, you're actually taking the muscle and putting it back into the bone where it belongs, through sutures or screws, usually screws attached to suture that go into the bone. All right. So if you were to pull and use your muscle to pull on that repair before it heals, you actually pull the repair out. So that's why any type of tendon repair, Achilles tendon, patella tendon, rotator cuff tendons, you have to give it a period of rest where you're not using the muscle at all to allow that to heal. Once it heals, now we start what we call passive motion, where somebody else takes the arm and moves it for you so those muscles aren't doing any work to minimize the stiffness. But usually after a tendon repair, we're not trying to strengthen, which is active motion of your muscle, where you're pulling on the muscles themselves for about 6 to 8 weeks. And that's why recovery from a rotator cuff takes so long, because if you're not using your muscle for 6 weeks, it's going to atrophy. And it's going to get very weak, and then it takes a long time to build that strength back up, especially to the pro level.
One final one, Tony Romo, he breaks his clavicle. I've broken my clavicle twice. Either the same one twice. I was so young I don't remember, but either broken both of them once. When you think about that, bone is pretty, you know, useless, I guess, but until you break it, and then it becomes very useful. But you know, what is it? You know, what's the difference between needing surgery, which he does not appear that he's going to, and just letting it heal?
Well, that's a big question, and it's a very good question. The collarbone or the clavicle is actually a very, very important bone because it's the only thing that connects our torso to our arm. You think about it. There's nothing else important other than muscle attachments. That's the only bone through the joint right in the front called the AC joint. That's the only bone. And if you break that, you basically have a frail arm because there's nothing holding it together. So most of the time, and this has been, I guess, in the last 8 to 10 years, now they're coming around, we're operating a lot more on collarbones or clavicles. Prior to that, a lot of the studies showed that the best way to get the clavicle to not heal was to operate on it. It sounds backwards, but that's just because we didn't have great ways of fixing it with plates and screws and the blood supply and a bunch of other technical stuff. But now, typically athletes are getting them fixed. Okay, unless it's basically not really displaced and it's just a crack, it'll heal on its own, and it doesn't need to be fixed, because then you have to worry, we have to go back in and take the plate out. And in a contact sport, usually you don't like hardware in a bone that can get hit, then the plate can be, I mean, there's a whole lot of technical factors, but most likely it was a crack. It wasn't really displaced or shortened, and he should be fine to throw. It's just going to take some time, and I think that's why you're hearing the media that it's going to take 8, maybe 10 weeks he's going to miss.
Well, interesting as always, Dr. Paul Goldhagen with Bone and Joint Specialist. He and Dr. Martha George are certainly there to help you with all your bone and joint needs. Be sure to go and look them up on their website or give them a call, whatever your needs might be. Dr. Goldhagen, we really appreciate you joining us. Look forward to next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Up against the break here, but don't go anywhere. More Sports Call, presented by Lee Marketing Group, is on the way.
Bro, appreciate your time. Yes. I totally agree with you on there. Hey, buddy.
We're here to help you get smarter about your insurance. After all, the more you know, the better you can plan for what's ahead. Farmers is a good choice for your home, auto, recreational vehicle, life, and commercial insurance. Come see us at one of our 2
I touch okay? Get okay or something?
Alex City Food Shop is now your local Shell station, located on the corner of Airport Drive and Highway 280. Stop by and experience performance that excites with Shell V-Power gasoline. No other gasoline tastes better than Shell.
Oh, I'm not mad at you.
That's about it. Alex City Food Shop on the corner of Airport Drive and Highway 280.
Play stadium.
Appreciate your business. Located on Highway 280. In the market for a new rifle or shotgun? Come to the Sure Shop. Want a new bow or need to practice with the one you have? Come to the Sure Shop. Thinking about a firearm for self-defense? Come to the Sure Shop. Got a hunt plan and need some gear? Come to the Sure Shop. For all your archery, shooting, and hunting needs, let the Sure Shop be your first stop. What value would you gain working with Lee Marketing Group? I would under one umbrella. Sign Source, Lee Apparel, R&B Media, and LMG Baker Advertising Agency. Lee Marketing Group offers a comprehensive approach. From logo design and branding, ad placement, and everything in between, LMG can handle it all. For ease of time, cutting-edge, results-driven marketing campaigns, think LMG. Lee Marketing Group. Your comprehensive solution.
There's your fly.
That son of a, it's going to be the death of me.
What's Terry on? That's what I was asking a little bit ago. On the blue machine?
Well, James asked about 8 questions. Do you remember? You care?
I think we're up right now.
Okay.
Why don't we just not today? I can't tell which way to go.
couple more segments, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free or locally at 334-887-3401. We'll pick up your phone calls in the final segment of today's show. But right now we want to go to the AO Tourism Hotline and welcome in a very special guest, Ken Mastrol, former professional quarterback and creator of the Mastrol Quarterback Academy. Ken, we really appreciate you taking some time for us today. Absolutely. Well, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Mastrol Quarterback Academy. Well, when did you realize that you had I guess a gift for, being a quarterback coach and trying to give these guys some tutelage along the way to help them out and, just went ahead and formed this academy? You certainly had some impressive results. Teddy Bridgewater, as well as E.J. Manuel and Taj Boyd, just to name a few. And, of course, our own Sean White, who is going to make his college debut this Saturday in Jordan-Hare Stadium against Mississippi State. Just talk a little bit about Sean White, the player, and how long you've been working with him. perusing your website earlier today, you make it a point to talk about really three categories that you focus on in trying to mentor these quarterbacks, and I just kind of want to talk about those one at a time. And certainly, these are very general, but I was wondering if you could kind of expound on what exactly you focus on when trying to improve these attributes. But number one is decision making. Well, certainly the second one you focus on is I guess that's the easiest one to diagnose, but execution for the quarterback. Finally, a lot of people say, as far as leadership is concerned, you either have it or you don't. You're either a leader or a follower. Is leadership something that you can teach? Eagerly awaiting Sean's debut on Saturday, certainly hoping for the best, and understand that he's put in a lot of hard work, and this is the time for those kind of things to pay off. But while I got you on the line, Ken, you being a quarterback whisperer, so to speak, what would be your diagnosis of Jeremy Johnson so far?
player in person. And I think this may have kind of gone on a little bit in terms of the expectations. A little bit bad for a lot of times when quarterbacks tend to have anxiety. They don't just worry about cutting moves and they overprocess.
Ken Mastro of the Mastro Quarterback Academy, we really appreciate you joining us on Sports Call today, and certainly hope that Sean White is a very famous alumni of your academy very, very soon. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Up against a break here, but don't go anywhere. More Sports Call is on the way right after this.